First of all, I'm going to do a rotation really quick just to see how the skinning is doing. So actually, that's not too bad. I'm just hitting undo when I'm done with it. Um, that one's not too bad. Then you've got the wrist here. It's not too bad. So yeah, and for the sake of time in the tutorial, I'm probably not going to tune insanely. I'm going to really focus on fixing errors primarily, and then we'll kind of move forward into the next phase. So like, for example, that's obviously something that shouldn't be happening. And let's see, yeah, so we can go and we can really make adjustments there. But the first thing I want to do is I want to get the character to be generally symmetrical, so that the character is doing something similar across all pieces. So let's see. Okay, so now there's also another thing that I think is worth noting. So right now, this is the preferred angle. So if I were to rotate this out, I can then set assume preferred angle by right-clicking, and it'll bring it back to the position it was originally. Now that's really, really helpful because it allows me to make tests. Now the only thing is that in some of these cases, when you set up a joint, the preferred angle might not be what you think it would be. So I can actually always go to any joint and I can hit set preferred angle. And then I can do like a weird rotation, and then I can go to assume preferred angle, and it will just go back to the original position. And that's really helpful for when you're testing weights, because you can go and say, okay, I want to see how I can fix this this smoothing issue here, and then I can just go to assume preferred angle, and it'll take me back to the original placement. So let's see here. Okay, so and actually I need to go back because I didn't set preferred angle first on the leg when I hit assume preferred angle. So we're going to go to set preferred angle, and then I can move that here, and then I can go to assume preferred angle. And that'll avoid having any problems with, like you'll notice that there was a little bit of like a twist in the foot and stuff. So, okay, so we're not going to be able to fix every issue by copying or mirroring the skin weights because there are some bone system differences. So some of these we need to be a little bit careful about what we're doing. So let's go ahead and make some tweaks that fix this a little bit more generally before we go and mirror skin weight. So I'm going to go to the skin menu. And I'm going to go to the paint skin weights options. And then this is going to bring up the tools that we need to take a look at these, the functionality here. And so basically what we should be looking at is all of the IK bones should have no influence. And it looks like they don't because everything is solid black. Now, I actually like to use the color ramp, which is just a gradient that shows you, like, so for example, you'll see the pelvis looks like this. So I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, jump back into that. Last tool used. So then if you hold down the B key on the keyboard, you can change the size of the paint skin weights tool. And you can go about making things a little bit cleaner. And I always focus on the left side, and then I mirror it over when I'm done. But so what we'll try to do is we'll try to go through and see the characters in various different positions. So I'm going to make sure that I set preferred angle go and kind of like extend the animation out. And then I'm going to try a couple of techniques for fixing this. So for one, I know that my leg, if I go to my thigh, I just want to actually paint full control over this thigh. And so I'm using a value of 1 and an opacity of 1, and I'm just saying, hey, this is the bone that is controlling this. But in a lot of cases, it's actually more difficult to do that because it's resistant to change. So you can actually switch to the thigh R, which is actually the one that's causing this problem. And then you can just hold down the control key and you can paint out the influence that phi R is having over these joints. But there's also a couple of other options that you can have here. So if I undo that really quick, I can actually go to select mode instead of paint mode. And I could just like grab a chunk of verts here, and then I can hold down the shift greater than, and I can expand the selection. And then if I make sure that I have the phi R selected, I can actually take this value, pump it to 0, and you can see how as I drag it to 0, it actually entirely takes out that influence of phi R on that that area. So there's another thing that I can do, which is like, so we notice that there's this major issue with this spot right here. So I can like grab a selection there, hold the shift greater than, or the shift period on my keyboard. And I'm going to see what actually happens if I hit this hammer button. So it's called the weight hammer. And actually, sometimes it will fix issues, but in this case, it's a little bit too challenging to fix. So that didn't really work. But the weight hammer did actually make it a little bit better. So let's see here. I'm going to actually select a larger area, see what happens if I hit the weight hammer. Okay, and you'll notice that that actually kind of made it look deformed and weird. So that's not going to work so well in this case. But you could possibly get it to work in some other areas. So I'll try using it in different spots, and we'll see what happens. You can also affect how much the hammer is influencing. And actually, wow, okay, that unexpectedly really helped quite a bit. So I'm actually just holding down the control key, and I'm removing the bones that I don't want. And actually, I got way further along than I thought I would with that, really easily. And usually it's helpful to do the hammer when you have the character extended. So let me see, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this joint, okay, so and this one I think I might actually want to make some adjustments to as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab those joints. Let me see what the hammer does. And actually, the hammer does a pretty good job of fixing that. So let's see. Okay, and I could make some more adjustments there, but I think for now that's probably going to be pretty okay. And of course, if you're having trouble selecting things, you can always go back to the Paint Skin Weights tool and change it to the Paint option instead of the Select option. And so then let's go ahead and take a look at how this influences things. So now that I've got the Paint Skin Weights, I can go ahead and I can assume preferred angle, and that recursively goes down all of the bones in the chain and sets them all back to their defaults. And so let's take a look really quickly at what the the joints look like. So I'm going to compare the thigh L to the thigh R. Okay, so it looks like the thigh L has some control over the right thigh that it doesn't need to have. So what I want to do is I want to actually select those verts and probably extend that out a little bit. And then find my thigh L. And drag that down to 0. And then if I rotate that out, you'll notice that it's much better now. Now, there are some situations here that are not working exactly how I wanted, and we could do more smoothing of this, but I think for the moment, again, because this is just an introductory lesson of how to do this kind of stuff, I'm not going to focus on it too heavily. So we're not going to go nuts with making these adjustments. Again, I'm just going to focus on the kind of the key areas. So okay, let's take a look at this, because it looks like we've got some serious problems with the arm pulling from the face. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment. So if I go switch back to the paint options, make sure I'm using the that I have the skin selected. I want to look for my left clavicle, see what that's controlling. So I think first of all, the clavicle is probably not actually influencing enough. So if you hold down the B key to change the size, you can drag a little bit more selection of the clavicle. And then actually I'm going to start experimenting with changing my opacity down. And so if I do the opacity lower, I can actually paint a little bit smoother results, and it won't be as drastic. And so if I do like an opacity of 0.1 to 0.25, I usually actually get pretty good results with that. So I'm just quickly kind of nudging the clavicle there first. Then we're looking at the upper arm here, and obviously the upper arm has some serious problems. So what we need to do is, let's see if the upper arm, okay, so the upper arm is the only issue. So the upper arm is, for whatever reason, ended up grabbing part of the face. So what we can do is we can just move, let's make sure, if I hold down the assume preferred angle. Okay, so actually I gotta back this up because I didn't set the preferred angle first. So I'm gonna grab the clavicle, right click, select set preferred angle, and then I can go and I can make that edit properly and be able to get it back. So if I were to assume preferred angle, then yeah, there we go. Now actually, just as a kind of a safety, I'm actually going to grab the, before we continue on, I'm going to grab the root, and I'm going to select set preferred angle on that. And so then that way, if I were to rotate anything, I can go to assume preferred angle, and that'll fix it in the future. So okay, so let me go ahead and go back and I'll do this work again. Now actually, in practical applications, just to let you guys know, I pretty much never paint skin weights at a value of 1 when I'm actually working on a project. I usually do like 0.125 or 0.25. So let's go ahead and fix this issue with the face. So let's see. So I'm gonna just grab a huge selection here. Let's see. Okay. And then I want to grab my upper arm bone, and I'm going to make that value 0. And then we can actually, and this will be a similar technique that we use for fixing the hand there too, but then what I need to do is I need to just paint the corrections to my shoulder here. So I'm going to go through, and this time I'm going to switch to the paint selection options, and I can make a few adjustments about this as I go. Basically, I want both the arm and the clavicle to be sharing control over this and kind of blending that. And I got to be careful that it's not doing too much or too little of any of them, so that it looks smooth. And I think that, so for example, right there, I think I may actually be better served by having the clavicle control that more. But you'll notice as I start to paint this out, it actually starts to improve pretty substantially. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's definitely better. So now, and this is something that can take days if you're doing it the right way. So don't feel like you have to make everything perfect the first time. And that's why I'm also not really trying to make this 100% here. So I'm going to also go into my spine. I want to make sure that I'm not. That's actually probably part of the problem here, is that I'm going to quickly switch my opacity to 1, hold down Control, which will do the inverse. And I'm going to probably use the. I'm going to try to get rid of some of that underside of the arm, but then I just switch back to 0.25 and then just try to get a little bit of that extending off of the body. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave the arm mostly like that. I think that we could do a lot more tweaking, but I think that in the long run, it would kind of be a little bit of we don't really need to do all of that right now. So I'm just going to move on to the last bit, which is obviously what's going on here with the head grabbing from the torso. So I'm going to rotate the head in that position. And then I'm going to look for the bone for the neck and for the head. The head itself seems to be the one that's the biggest problem. And I think that actually what is happening here is that I must not have edited the shape of the bone for the head, because otherwise I don't think this would have happened this way. And this is also actually influencing everything, so everything is looking worse because of this. So I'm going to select. I'm going to switch to the select tool. I'm going to grab a selection of just a few of these stray verts here, and then I'm going to see if I can expand that up. And I know I don't want it to include anything here on the neck, really. So I'm actually just going to take that, and I'm going to slide, make sure I have my head selected. I'm going to slide those values down to 0, and then I can also type in 0 and hit flood if I need to, and that should help me. Now that I did that, actually there's a few spots here that are a little bit janky, so I could actually try using the hammer. And actually, yeah, the hammer pretty much sorted that out. So hammer should be your best friend in a lot of cases. And then, so we're looking at the head here. We want to make sure that the head has all of the the firmness that it needs to have. I'm going to switch back to painting real quick. And the head should be, change the opacity to 1. Make sure we got the painting options here. And so I want to make sure that the back of the head is firmly being controlled by the head and not by the neck. So I'm going to probably have to paint. I'm going to have to do some painting of the head weights, but I also need to switch to painting the neck as well and paint out the influence that it shouldn't be having. And right now I'm not worrying as much about just focusing on the one side, because this is pretty easy to do, just going around the head and making the edits that I need to make. So let's see. I'm going to make sure that for the most part the neck is controlled by the neck. I'll hold down B, adjust the size of that a little bit. There's some areas there that I could probably use the hammer on to fix. Then let's jump back into the head here and see. So actually, I think that this is looking pretty solid, to be honest. So I might make a few small tweaks with the hammer. So I might switch to selection. I'll just grab some of these joints here, or verts here, rather. Just expand it a little bit, maybe hold down Control and subtract some of those from the head. I want to subtract from the back of the head as much as I can. And then I'm just going to use the hammer to kind of smooth those out. Okay. So yeah, so then the last bit here that I think is super relevant is we want to get the hand fixed. And so for whatever reason, when I was looking to copy or mirror the weights, I was having a little bit of difficulty doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and so I'm just actually shift greater than to select all of these verts here. And then I'm actually just going to kind of deselect the verts that I don't want, which are all the ones in the arm. And now you may notice that I'm kind of I'm like rotating it around, and then I'm trying to drag a box that doesn't include the bone. That's because there's a little bit of a trick here where if you select the bone when you're dragging a box, you will actually not select any of the verts that you were trying to select. It'll only select the bone. So let's see. Okay, and then I'm just going to make a few adjustments here, and I can probably make tweaks to this separately, but I don't have to make this 100% perfect. I just want to make sure that for whatever reason the hand bones did not get associated with the hand, or the hand verts didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that right hand bone with that selection, and I'm going to change the value to 1, and that will mean that the hand is now being firmly controlled by that hand bone. And obviously this would be a little bit more complicated if you're working with fingers, so just bear that in mind. But okay, so then let's go ahead here and let's assume preferred angle. So we've got our character set up. And again, this is a character that will match 100% with Unreal because we used the Unreal skeleton and we kept all of the orientations and all that kind of stuff correct. So it shouldn't have too many problems. So then the last thing that we want to look at, let's look at a comparison between a few bones. So I'm going to switch to the paint selection. So we've got the pelvis here. We've got a spine 1, spine 2, spine 3. Okay, so let's look at the difference between the clavicle L and the clavicle R. So that's going to be our guide for setting up the mirrors, is we want to make sure that we've actually gotten this to apply correctly. So I'm going to go to skin, mirror skin weights. And what I want, what I think we're going to be doing is we're going to be mirroring YZ positive to negative, and then we can hit like apply. And so then if I look at my weights here, you'll notice they're now pretty symmetrical. And actually, if I look at the clavicle, now the clavicle functions exactly the way that the other clavicle did. And so what we should notice is now the character will rotate the same way for all of the bits. And then we can just look at the kind of like a final set of issues, because it looks like the clavicle right now is controlling too much of the neck. So we can go ahead and make adjustments to that and then wrap it up. So let's see. Make sure I have my skin selected. And then we can just paint out the influence of, we'll just focus on clavicle L. I'll just get rid of the influence that clavicle L has over the neck that way. And I can do it by painting it, or I can do it by actually selecting the verts. But I think in this case, it actually would be easier to do it by painting. Now, this is kind of a weird thing, but it's actually really hard to get like these to completely turn off all influence. And in most cases, you don't really need to worry about it, but it comes down to like a tiny microscopic influence. If you really want to get that so there's completely no influence at all, you would do this selection. And so then I'm going to go ahead and see if that works. Go ahead and apply that so that it's actually mirrored across both. And then if I rotate my clavicle, dang, okay, let's see. Oh, look, okay, we still have a little bit of issues on the arm, so that's no problem. So let's go ahead and make that tweak. So we've still got some spots here, having some issues. So switch to the select option. I'm going to grab a big chunk of verts here, extend this out substantially. And then I'm going to just make sure that I have the upper arm L, and I just slide that down to 0. And I can also hit flood to make sure. And then, oops. Then if I grab this bone, then it's no longer going to be influencing the neck, but the right one is. So let's just go ahead and select the skin again, apply, and okay. So let's take a look at that. Paint, skin weights. Huh. That's weird. Okay. So the upper arm. So upper arm looks like it's still got some influence there. We must have just missed some of that. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're actually looking at it while it's damaged. So I'll go ahead and rotate that out. And then we can look at a combination of elements here. So we can do, for example, I can just paint all of this out. That's ooh, that's pretty bad. So I can try painting this out, or I can try doing this selection. Both usually work, so let's see. Just depends on how many times you want to brush over something. So let's go ahead and select. And okay, so then let's try this one more time. Upper arm L. Make sure the value is 0. And okay, so then let's go ahead. Right click, assume preferred angle. I'm gonna save this real quick. Hit apply. And then let's take a look at the paint weights here. Wow, that is causing some problems. Okay, so it looks like for whatever reason, mirroring the weights is not working as intended. So let's take a look at that and see what we can do. So I'm going to try changing the positive to negative off, and then seeing what that does. Okay, so actually that looks like that worked. So now I guess I needed to mirror them not on the positive negative. Oh no, you're wrong. That was bad. Okay, so I guess in this case, for whatever reason, these are just not working correctly. They're not mirroring as intended. So I'm going to go and make sure I leave the positive negative turned on. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to manually paint those out or select those out. So I'm going to switch to the selection. I'm going to grab verts. And then I'll select the upper arm, make sure those are 0. So occasionally there are tiny little bugs in the way that this stuff works. So it looks like we ran into one of those where for whatever reason when it was copying out from one spot, it was going in with another. So so it happens. But okay, so then because I'm interested in nitpicking here, I'm going to do one last tweak, which is I want to make sure that the collars are a little bit nicer. And so I'm going to go ahead and hammer that. I think that it'll be okay. Okay. So then I can go ahead, grab my skeleton, assume preferred angle, and then we just want to do a quick kind of final test of how everything looks. It's not perfect by any stretch, but we can definitely use it. It should look decent. within the confines of the game engine. So this is kind of like a primer on how you set up weight painting. So okay, so then I'm actually just going to go ahead. I'm going to take a look. Window outliner. So I've got my skin, and I've got my SK mannequin group, which has the exact same root bones. And then we're going to go ahead and set up the X